Women-owned businesses generate $1.8 trillion a year, and less than 2% of the venture capital funding goes to women.
Hello, and welcome to Working with me, Dan Doriani, hosting a podcast where we explore faith, work, culture, and the way believers can make a difference in their corner of the world. My guest today is Lisa Nichols, the CEO and co-owner of Technology Partners, a respected firm that provides talent, technology, and leadership development solutions with some focus on businesses led by women. Today I'm with Lisa Nichols, who is the CEO and co-owner of the St. Louis-based Technology Partners. Lisa and her husband, Greg, co-founded Technology Partners about 30 years ago. And like all successful businesses, they make sure they say, this is us and our team without which we could not do this. And they try to lead with passion and compassion and professionalism every day. And Lisa, you and I believe that God is the giver of every good and perfect gift. You also have a podcast. So I'm going to just say it again. Technology Partners is your organization. Yes. You also have a podcast called Something Extra. You just finished your 200th episode. Glad to have you here. What do you want to add to what I just said about you and your company a little bit? Just introduce yourself a little more if you want to.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I think you about covered it. But yeah, I co-founded this with my husband, Greg, and it has just been a wild ride. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. I get asked that question a lot, Dan, how is that working with your husband? And I said, it's got its challenges, but it's also got its tremendous blessings. And so it's just been so much fun to be on the same page and to be working toward a common goal and a common vision. And so, yeah, we're 28 and a half years into it, and it's just been wonderful.
That's terrific. And so you have the title CEO, and he has the title
COO.
COO. So
COO president.
You're partners.
We co-lead.
And you're kind of 50-50. Mm-hmm. And that's great. Not everybody can do that. Do you want to just tell us a word about how you make it work? Not everybody wants to work, no matter how much they love their husband or their wife or their parent or their child. Mm-hmm. Not everybody wants to work with family. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with a family. Mm-hmm. Do you have a key point or two that makes it work for you?
How much time do you have?
Just give us one or two, and then you can write a book, and people can read the rest of the story.
Right? Yes. I mean, it definitely. A lot of people, they'll say, "There's no way I could work with my spouse." Now, the one thing that I would say about us is that we are gifted differently. Okay. So we've got different strengths and we've got different weaknesses, and it just so happens for us that they're complementary. Together. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So I am typically
If you're not watching on YouTube, we both put our fingers together.
Yes, we did.
At the same instant almost.
Because I talk with my hands. If I had to sit on my hands, it would be very difficult. But yeah, we're gifted very differently. So I kind of focus more outwardly and clients acquisition, and that was my background.
Kind of fits CEO, COO. Right. COO usually is internal operations, right? Yeah.
But, as far as like vision, as far as huge decisions, I mean, we are always lockstep, right? Yeah. So most of the company reports up through Greg.
So you get to be Mrs. Outside.
Mrs. Outside.
There's Mr. Inside and Mrs. Outside. Does that fit, kind of?
Yeah, it does.
That's a good division of labor.
Yeah, it is. And, I truly, and isn't that a good leader though, Dan, to recognize that you are not the smartest person in the room? I will admittedly say I am not the smartest person. I'm not a technical person.
Right.
People think that's so funny when they're like, but you're the CEO of a tech company. I'm like, I'm probably the least technical person in our whole organization, but I'm surrounded by geniuses.
Well, and of course, you're an outward looking, one of the things you said, I'll just go this direction because it fits perfectly right now. In one of the things I read about you, you say, or people say about you both, that you encourage a growth mindset and courage over comfort. That really fits an outwardly facing person, a CEO, somebody who's maybe working for a tech company but not technically astute. I'm sure you're better than you give yourself credit for. But I love this line that you believe in courage over comfort. Because so many businesses want to have, I do. So many, I'll just unpack it myself a tiny bit. Some businesses, they just want to have, look, we want to have a comfortable living. We have one restaurant, we have one product we make, and we earn a nice income, and we have 11 people, and that's what we want. And that's comfortable. There's nothing wrong with that, but you don't favor comfort, or you don't like to work as much with people who favor comfort. You like the wild ride. And going for
Strap
stuff.
in.
Tell us about, expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, courage over comfort. I mean, that's interesting that you kind of phrased it that way, because organizationally you can look at it that way. And we definitely have done that. It's, for the longest time, our bread and butter was IT staffing.
Yep.
So we were staffing. But there was a period of time where we had some of our clients, and I always say, if you want to know where to go as an organization, ask your clients.
Oh, well, that's a good point.
And
yes,
they will
right.
tell you.
Yes.
They will tell you how you need to morph. They will tell you how you need to change.
That's true.
And about 12 years ago, we had a client that came to us and said, we're trying to figure out how to get more work done and do it in a different way. Could you guys stand up a solutions team? So the difference in that on the staffing side, say like maybe there's a Bear or a Panera that has some need.
Yes.
And we'll go out, we either have that person already on staff with us, or we go find that person, put that person on that team at Bear. The difference with solutions is where Deerbergs comes to us and says, we need to improve our customer experience in the grocery
It's much
store.
broader.
Much broader.
Right.
How can you guys help us? How can you help us see the possibilities of how technology can drive that and improve that experience?
Yeah.
So in that case, what we've done is we will build a system. We will help them dream it, almost co-create it
Yes.
with them, Dan, build it from the ground up. We test it. We, do all aspects of that software development lifecycle and then hand it back.
Let me offer up an analogy just for other perspectives.
Sure.
Let's suppose, just to use Deerbergs again, they're a St. Louis-based company.
Yes.
They're putting up a new store. And some people would say, okay, I've got, let's just say 200,000 square feet. That's just a number. How are we going to use these 200,000 square feet physically? And you don't do the physical side, you do the technological side. And they say, we got a space, we've got a budget. You build it out using your expertise. We're food people.
Right.
You're technology people.
Good point.
Help us out.
Good point.
Is that how it goes?
That's exactly how it goes. And, all of these organizations, most of these organizations, unless it's a smaller startup to small size business, they have their own IT staff. But sometimes they don't have, number one, they don't have the capacity to do new things. Right? They're just trying
There's
to...
not depth of expertise. I mean, they have 4 people, and you have how many people? You have dozens and hundreds.
We have 450 people. We have 450 people.
So.
And they've done a lot of different things across a lot of different industries. So I always say to a client, it is good to get a partner, and obviously I would love for you to choose technology partners, but a partner in partnership with you on your vision, because for us, I mean, again, we've got 450 people. We've been at this for almost 30 years. We have worked across such a breadth of industries, a breadth of different organizations, a breadth of challenges.
So you have a perspective on, just to stick with Deerbergs, you have a perspective on Deerbergs that they don't have themselves.
Absolutely. And
And of course, your customers have a perspective on you. They say, you think you're good at this, but we also think you're good at that.
Right.
Which, of course, is common in industry, right? People create something and they say, this is created for this purpose. And then along comes a customer and says, there's no doubt it's useful for this purpose, but we see it as useful over here.
Right. Yeah, I mean, our goal is really to be that trusted advisor, that trusted partner. There is a maturity curve that organizations go through. And it used to be, Dan, that the IT department were considered more order takers. So they're in the organization and the business comes to them and says, here's what we need. And they're taking the order.
They're like manufacturing. Once the design is done and once you've done the marketing, then you could now go make this entity. But you're saying it's changed.
But it's changed. And so the goal now for IT and for companies that are winning, that we see winning,
Yes.
really views IT this way. IT really wants to be the strategic, the innovative anticipator. They are looking at what coming around the curve and being able to help the business say, here are the possibilities through technology and the talent that you hire and the transformation that can happen in the business.
Right.
Here are the possibilities. And so looking around the bend almost, and not just sitting in the corner taking the orders, but really being a partner at the table.
That's great.
And so that's what we really do, try to come in and be that true partner for our clients.
That's terrific. I like that a lot. Now, as you know, this is a faith and work podcast. So I think any moral person and any energetic person, talented person could say a lot of things you just said. So let's start talking about how your faith affects your work. And one of the things you help firms do is hire the right people. And you also have to handle downsizing. Now, in my book, it's a lot easier to handle growth than downsizing. And it's a lot easier to hire somebody than it is to let somebody go, because the business cycle demands that we cut our staff. And of course, we all hope to avoid layoffs as we possibly can, but sometimes there are layoffs. So I'm going to ask you two questions. I'll take the first one first, and then we'll do the second one second. How do you help? You help people locate talent. That's one of the things
That's one of the
you
pillars.
do.
Yes.
How do you help people locate talent? I'm going to put a little edge on this, without selling people on something, without promoting a position that you don't entirely believe in, without schmoozing or flattering. Or how do you do it? How do you hire with perfect honesty and love? How does your faith come to bear on that?
Yeah, that is a terrific question. And I would say in that process, we spend so much time vetting. So everybody that comes to us does not get hired by us.
Of course not.
I mean, we are really vetting people. We do technical interviews, we do cultural assessments, we do, personality assessments. So we really and truly, it's good, honest, and integrity. Really, when we're talking to an individual, we never oversell the company. We try to find as much out, and especially if it's a client that we've worked with for a long time, like an Edward Jones.
You believe in them.
We believe in them. We know the culture. We know, how they treat their people. And so, we are trying to give that individual as much information as we can.
Yes.
And so that then they can make the choice. I mean, we never ramrod people into a position. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It's not sustainable.
You waste a lot of time and energy.
You're going to waste a lot of time and energy.
But some people try to just fill the slots. You know that.
Absolutely. And I don't know, for a lack of a better way to put that, sometimes old school in our industry, our firms like us were considered what they call body shops, trying to put people's
and
rear ends in the
seat. If it works,
seat.
And if not, we'll get rid of them later.
And that has never been us. We are there for the long haul. We really have such low turnover, Dan. And even in a market where financially, like our clients are laying off and stuff, I mean, because we are so careful on that upfront, the hiring piece and the vetting piece.
Let me guess. People don't want to let their hires go.
That's right.
They want to retain. They'll do anything they can to keep them because
retain those people
they don't want to lose their
so
talent.
Good
and that's
quality.
the sign of a well-run company, of course. And it means you did a good job.
Exactly. And our people get hired. We've never prevented our clients from hiring our people.
Okay.
And so, they'll go in as a consultant and then hire in permanently.
Yeah.
But a proof in the pudding for us is, I cannot even tell you, I could probably sit here all day and just name cases where we have put people in organizations they hire in, they become the hiring managers then.
Oh, that's,
and that is not going to happen, right? Unless we're finding the right people from the get-go.
Let me ask you the harder question. How do you let people go in a spirit of love? I mean, can I say it? How does the Lord's character and kindness and compassion instruct you when you have to help people make layoffs or tell somebody, you're great as a person. We value you as a person. You are of almost infinite worth. Mm-hmm. But you can't work here anymore because it's not working out. Mm-hmm. How do you do that? How would you counsel other people to do it?
It's the thing that I dislike the most.
Of course you do. Yeah, but
that's what I make Greg do.
I do not accept that answer. All right, how do you tell Greg to do it then?
No, I'm teasing. That is the thing I don't like doing. Right. I would like to think we've gotten better at it over the years, but it is always approaching that person with kindness and compassion, and just, hopefully, Dan, along the way, you are having candid conversations with them.
It's not a shock. They know
it's not a shock.
Amiss.
They know that, they know,
right.
Can we get this fixed? Because you're not really hitting your numbers, or, we've had this many complaints, from a client about your work. How can we fix this? And so we will go through a period where we're trying to coach them. We're trying to see if they can fix it. But if they cannot, ultimately, we have to think about the entire team. We have to think about the greater good, right? And you cannot keep one person and sacrifice
the rest. So one way to put it is to love the rest of the team. Sometimes you have to love this person by helping them find another job.
That is exactly right.
Kindness to one person who's really underperforming, maybe even not showing up, or showing up and doing the wrong job. It creates extra work, extra tension for everyone else.
Right. And you have to think, are we perfect? Absolutely not.
Right.
No organization is, right? But Dan, we have worked so hard for 28 and a half years to build the reputation that we have. And we have an impeccable reputation in the marketplace.
You do have a good reputation, no doubt about that.
We do.
Let me ask you one more question before the break, because some of our people do not work in industry. They can't afford somebody like you. They don't have the scope. I mean, they're running, their budget's $200,000 a year, and they have maybe 3 employees. What would you say is a universal principle for hiring? Let's suppose somebody has a small organization, maybe it's nonprofit, maybe it's an ironworking company that has 11 people. What would you say to a person who is not in your field, can't make use of your resources, about the best way to hire? What are a couple big principles that anybody could follow?
I think, first of all, you have to look at character.
Yeah.
I think you have to dig down on character. If that person has an affinity to learn, they say, what is the old adage, Dan, that history is the best predictor of the future?
Yes.
So looking at their history, look at the resume. I mean, it's always a red flag to us. Now, if you're a consultant, that's a little bit different because consultants move.
Right, sure.
They move from company to company. That's what it means to be a consultant. Right. But if you look at somebody and they're here 3 months and there 4, that'd be a red flag. It's
definitely.
Like, what, and it can't be always the organizations.
Yeah, 1, maybe even 2, but not 7.
Right. And so that should be a red flag. But I would say looking for character. Who was it? Herb Keller, that was one of the founders of Southwest. I love the book Southwest Way. Yes. If anybody has not read that, go read it. It's a great business book.
Yep.
But, he said he always hired for attitude and then trained for skills. And, now sometimes that doesn't work, right? Yes. I may say, I want to be a great golfer.
It doesn't mean you have the ability to drive the ball far enough.
It doesn't mean that you have the ability to drive the ball far enough. So,
right. You need skill. But I appreciate, and of course in the Bible, when you look at the characteristics of a leader, it's character first. An overseer of the church must be temperate, self-controlled, and hospitable, and able to teach. But the list of character traits is actually longer than the skills, even of a church leader. As important as it is to have skills in the church. So I'm going to try one out on you. I always say that I want to hire somebody who wants to work for me. I don't want to hire somebody who doesn't want to work here. Not for me in some narrow sense, but I want to hire people who want to work in this place.
Yeah.
Being wanted is important if you're an employee, but being wanted is also important for an employer.
I love
Do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. And you know what? That's always kind of a litmus test for me too. So if someone were to come in and interview. I want to know what are the questions that they're asking me about the company. I want to know, did they do their research? Did they do their homework? And if they come in and go, well, yeah, I really don't know exactly
I don't know what you
do. I'm like,
I'm just looking for a job here.
I mean, it kind of shows you. But I mean, we have had people in the history of our company that will come to us and say, you know what, I've been following you guys.
Oh, yes.
And I see what you're doing here, and I see what you're doing there, and I would love to be a part of this, right? Yeah. Well, listen, that person, that checkbox is going to be, that's going to be checked, right?
There's a good chance it's a fit this coming.
Yeah.
We're going to take a micro break here. Lisa Nichols, CEO of Technology Partners, is with me today. After a little break, she's going to come back and we're going to talk about things like how you support women who are engaging in business enterprises. And, I don't know, we're going to talk about Fortune 500 companies and why it's important to work for them if you get a chance at some point. We'll have a few other topics. We'll be back in a few seconds.
The Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals is a coalition of believers who hold the historic creeds and confessions of the Reformed faith and proclaim biblical doctrine in order to foster a Reformed awakening in today's church. What all that means is we care about the church, we care about truth, and work hard to preserve and advance it every day. Connect with our broadcast, podcast, publishing, internet, and event platforms at workingwithdan.org. Thank you for your prayerful and financial support of the Alliance.
So we're back with Lisa Nichols, CEO and co-owner of Technology Partners. She also has a podcast called Something Extra, so she knows how to be on a podcast because she's hosted people many, many times. I want to talk about one aspect of your purpose in life, which is, as a woman, you want to encourage other women who are in business. And it's not always easy to be a woman in business. Of course, it's getting easier as more and more women are accepted in more and more spaces and have more degrees, more mentors as well. You did make a statement that caught my interest in one of the documents either you wrote or somebody wrote about you, and that is that lack of access to capital is perhaps the greatest challenge for women's businesses. Now, of course, that's a challenge for everybody, men and women alike. But I assume you're saying it's even more of a challenge for women. Would you elaborate on that a little bit and then maybe give counsel to women who might be listening about how to get capital?
Yeah, and this is not me just saying this. Right. I mean, there's TechCrunch, there's all kinds of research out there, Dan, that says that this is the number one. Interestingly enough, the number two challenge for women is lack of mentors. But that's getting better.
We'll talk about that next.
Well, we can talk about that. Yeah. But and as you know, access to capital it's paramount. Without capital, you're not going to grow as a business. Right. But I do have just a few stats here, just so that your listeners can understand and not to bore them too much. But, you want
to bore them just the right amount.
Yeah, just the right amount.
Okay, go ahead. Some statistics, yes.
12.3 million women own businesses in the United States. Wow. 12.3
That's not boring
million.
At all. That's a great, yeah.
Now, 114% more females than there were 20 years ago. And get this, women-owned businesses generate $1.8 trillion a year.
That's a big number.
Yeah, with a T, trillion.
Yeah.
But, and I was very fortunate. I don't know if you knew this, but in 2017, I got invited to the White House to meet with President Trump and Ivanka. It was just phenomenal. And that was one of the topics. There were 10 businesswomen from across the country that were invited to this roundtable discussion. Yes. And we were talking about this, and it really has not improved. Less than 2% of the venture capital funding goes to women.
That's very, very low.
It's very low. But, minorities.
Can I just ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, sure.
What about companies? So I'm just thinking in my mind of various companies I know that were started with a man and a woman, not necessarily married. I have some pretty direct experience with one. Is it easier if you're in partnership with a man? Does it?
Probably a little bit easier, yes. Because let me tell you this: 72%.
Yeah. Oh, more stats. Go ahead. Yeah, good.
72% of companies that get funded are ran by white males.
Yeah, that doesn't shock me.
White males. So it's not just women.
Of course, white males are 72% of the population. Just kidding.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
Because you all have a mother. So So no, I don't think that.
Yeah.
That's,
Okay. So
but,
we need to make. So what counsel would you give to someone who's listening and saying, okay, I want to start something, and probably you and I both know women who've started businesses, and maybe after we have this podcast, we can name names, but women do get access and they find a way. What are the key aspects of getting capital if you're a woman in business?
Well, in today's world, you've got to tie into the entrepreneurial network.
Okay.
So, there's definitely entrepreneur groups here in St. Louis.
Right.
Maxine Clark, the founder of Build-A-Bear, was involved a few years ago in Prosper Women. And her whole thing, it was a venture capital firm to support women-owned businesses.
Only women or
only
a focus
women.
on women? Okay, only
women. Only women.
Okay.
But
and that's worked well. I mean,
they're no longer in, doing what they're doing because Maxine's moved on to do all kinds of amazing things in St. Louis, like the Del Mar Divine and that sort of thing. Yeah. But my point is, the venture capital funds often are ran by men.
Yeah, right.
The check writers are men.
Well, I mean, you go to the people
Dan?
you know.
Yeah, yes.
I mean, men hang out with men, women hang, and there's just self-perpetuating nature to leadership. And so whether we mean to or not, we hang out with people of our gender and our ethnicity often and our age group.
Yeah.
And so you have to take steps to make sure that there's more access to other people, for other people to get capital.
Exactly. So, it's more women stepping up. There's more and more firms that are stepping forward, that are women, ran by women, venture capital firms. But I always say too, Dan, and this kind of goes back to the question about mentoring.
Yes, please. Let's talk about that.
We all have a responsibility.
Yes.
To pull other people forward. And so if you are a woman and you have been successful, make sure you're reaching back and pulling other women forward. We've got to do that. Men do that for men.
Yeah, and I have to. I agree
men.
with you. And can I just offer this thought? We should make sure we do it in the way that's appropriate for us. So, I mean, I have a podcast. I'm a professor, and I'm a writer. So I'm working on 2 multi-author books right now. But I want to make sure I have multiple female authors. It's easiest for me to think about the men I hang out with in theological circles. Oh, I'll get Mike. Oh, I'll get, Scott or Robbie and so forth. And I did get them, and they're happy to do it. And then I have to pause and say, do I want an all-male team? And the answer is I do not want an all-male team.
You do not.
Right.
So, now you're getting me down another rabbit trail.
But I mean, everybody has to
but,
think that way.
Yes.
So if you're in IT, you think in IT. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a designer, if you work in clothing or food or flowers or concrete, whatever it is that you do. By concrete, I mean actual concrete, not metaphorically concrete things.
Diversity is good. Diversity is good for business, and what we hear. I mean, I just recorded 2 of my own podcasts this morning and had a CPO on, a chief people officer from a large company in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
And we're talking about the whole diversity, equity, inclusion.
Right.
There are so many studies out there. Diverse companies.
They do better.
They do better.
Right.
They do better. They're more profitable. They're more innovative.
They have more perspectives.
They have better perspectives.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you also have to think, Dan, you've got to be a representation of the people that you're serving. And think about the people that are buying your products, right?
Well, I'll give you my personal illustration, and this may sound odd to you, but for one of the 2 books that are multi-author, it's on 7 deadly sins and the virtues that drive them out. So I asked a certain young woman who's very little known but very talented, what would you like to do? You know what she chose? She chose lust. She said, I know it's associated with men, but we need a female perspective on the problem of lust, which of course includes sexual lust, yes, but other forms of lust as well.
Lust of the eye,
and
lust
we
of
need
the
to get
flesh.
out of we need to get out of a certain groove of the way for 1,000 years we've been talking about lust. And I want to bring a different perspective on it. I said, terrific. I now have you down for lust. No further discussion. You've got it. It's yours. And it's going to be fresh.
It's going to be awesome.
Right.
It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to read that.
So how do you mentor young women? Let's say somebody's looking up to you, Lisa, and they say, I don't want general principles. I want to know what you do in your technology firm as a CEO? What do you do to mentor and care for, encourage, bring young women, or maybe not so young, maybe they just re-entered the workforce after some years out? What do you do?
Well, I do that informally all the time.
Yes.
All the time. I just had a young woman reach out to me last week and said, would you mentor me? I said, you will probably mentor me as much as I would mentor you,
Yeah.
I'm sure, but the way that I always start that is, I will say I'll meet with you on a quarterly basis. I mean, my time is limited,
Yes,
just
of course
like
it is.
everyone's, right? So, but I will say to them, I will be glad. Let's have coffee once a month or once a quarter.
Yeah, that's good.
And then I will say to them, but I'm putting the onus on you to reach out to me because I may not remember. And then that gives me an idea. Are they
And then they'll
really
think of what
serious?
they want to talk about, of course,
You've got
also.
to-
They're not going to...
You've got to come prepared
I'm
as the
going to make an
mentee.
appointment. I better have an agenda.
Yes, the mentee, the mentee has responsibility to come forward and say, here are the things that I want to work on. And then we'll go from there. But, I always say it that way though, because I'm like, that gives me an idea how serious are they really about growing. And I'd have to think back. I don't think there's anybody that's asked me to do that I have said no to. But, it can be short-lived too, Dan. You can have multiple mentors and it can be for a season, maybe just something that you're going through. But I will do that. Yeah, absolutely. And
a lot of people need a mentor for maybe, I'll just pick something, their father is dying. You don't need a mentor for 5 years, but you really need somebody to come beside you. Their father died a year ago. They handle it really well. Would you talk to me about the process? Because I respect you and you've gone through it before me. And then we're done.
Right. That is one of the reasons, and I know that you feel the same way. That's one of the reasons I have absolutely loved doing the Something Extra podcast.
Yes.
Because talking to these people, I think what I talked with Mindy Cox about today, the CPO at this company in Salt Lake City, there may be one or two things that she says, Dan, that a listener...
Oh, sure. Remembers the rest of their life.
It may change the trajectory of their life, you know? But you don't know that for sure until you put it out there. I remember having someone on the podcast, and it escapes me right now, but he said, oh, yeah, I've been mentored by, let's say, Stephen Covey. Okay. And I'm like... You're kidding. You've been mentored by the Stephen Covey? He goes, yeah, because I've read all of his books.
That's good. It's not quite identical.
It's not quite identical, but that's why I love what you're doing and all the books that you've written because, you're helping people.
Well, it's time for me personally to be done writing books solo all the time. And it's time to make sure that young people, they're not young, they're like 42. But people who don't have necessarily access but have the ability, have someone opening a path for them, which of course we both believe is important. Let me switch gears for a minute and ask you a question. This is coming. So some people are tech enthusiasts, some people are tech pessimists. Just go to Netflix and look up dystopian shows. It's just, there's hundreds of them. Computers are going to ruin the world. You know that, right? And you're working for the kind of industry that's going to ruin humanity. That's what one person, nobody will say that to your face, but people think it because you follow the media. And other people say, no, actually, technology is making life better for everybody. And they're a little bit too optimistic. Like I don't know if you know who Yuval Harari is, but he thinks we're going to download our consciousness into AI machines and we're going to live forever. He's an atheist. He's a brilliant atheist, but he really believes that technology is the way to eternal life. So there are two extremes. One is technology's destruction. One is technology's salvation. And of course, I think almost every sane person is somewhere between the great extremes. Tell us about why you believe in the field,
technology,
but also tell us, what might, if you wake up at 4 a.m, or maybe you wake up first thing and you have a thought about something that troubled you, you worked on it during the night. Yeah. So start with the positive, and then maybe give us a concern you might have about technology.
No, that's A great question, honestly, a great question, and one that a lot of people wrestle with, right?
Right.
But our tagline at Technology Partners is that we are harnessing the power of technology to improve the world.
Okay.
So that's the lens that we're looking at it
Right.
through.
You're optimists.
We're
fundamentally.
optimists.
Yep.
We're optimists. And, we don't have enough time. I could tell you so many anecdotal stories of how I have seen technology improve the world. And I'll just give you just a couple now.
Yeah, by all means, give us a couple.
So there is a company that we do work with called Resilient.
Okay.
And what they are doing, it was founded by a couple of really, really smart guys. One was a WashU doctor that's gone out on his own now and jumped onto the entrepreneurial wagon. But they are using robotic avatars to bring the best doctors in the world to any city in the world.
To people who have low access, I assume, is what you're driving at. Yep.
Yes.
Right.
So they can have the same level of care
Right.
that if you were in Boston.
The diagnostic skills, the imaging.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. And so that is amazing, right? There was another company, the CEO's name is Dan Clark. He's out of New York. He was actually on my podcast. Brilliant, brilliant young man. He did not do well in school.
Okay.
And just had a real problem with ADHD.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
just really
a lot of successful people
could not focus, right?
did not excel at school. We know that.
And so he started using an app called Brain FM. And what he found was, wow, when I'm using this, they take AI and they take neuroscience and music and they mesh them all together so that they look at your brain when you're in flow state.
Yes, right.
And they are meshing all of this together to get your brain in flow state with the music that they're playing. Or if you're trying to meditate or if you're trying to relax, they're getting your brain into that state. It is incredible. Dan, when he started, it was so funny. It worked so well for him that things started clicking for him in school. Right?
Yes.
He sent a letter to the then CEO.
Just do me a favor. Say what this is again. FM.
Brain, BRAIN FM. And it's an app. You can find it in the Play Store.
Yeah.
But he sent a letter and said, I want to come work for you. And they were a startup. Okay. And they were like, well, we don't have the funds to pay you. And he said, I'll come work for free.
Because I believe in it that much.
Because
and I
he
think
believed in it that
right.
much. Now he's the CEO, and it's blowing up because companies, organizations are looking at how can we help our people and with mental health and wellness.
So let me just label this for a second. So what you're saying is people have long had instincts. For example, I'm one of many people that play Mozart late at night when I'm wrapping. Maybe my wife's asleep and I've got some things I want to focus on. And those of us who love Mozart for that purpose, to keep your mind kind of focused, it's interesting but not too interesting, and there's sort of almost mathematical patterns. But not everybody likes Mozart. And so Brain FM creates algorithms to help you find out what works for you.
Whatever genre of music.
Believe it or not, there's a dinosaur called Not Florensis, which is named after a musician called Mark Knopfler, Dire Straits. And they listened to Dire Straits while they excavated this dinosaur. And it just helped them. It was enough energy, but also kind of calming and patterns and improv with repetition. And he said, that's what we need. So they found it by hit or miss. And AI and technology helps everybody find it. Mm-hmm. That's a great story. I love that story.
I love this story,
and that's called, just for the sake of people who struggle with ADHD, that's called Brain FM.
And Go to the Play Store. It's $5 a month.
Yeah, you can get it where you want, wherever you get your apps.
Wherever you
That's
get your
terrific.
apps.
That's a beautiful example. But sometimes technology does hurt us.
Right.
And I know you're not in the business of talking about the dangers, but you, when you care for your clients, are mindful of the ways in which technology cannot help their firm, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We would never recommend something that, in fact, Dan, when our team goes in to consult and be that trusted advisor,
right.
There's been times where the client will say, I think I need this.
And you go, no, actually,
and our people will be like, no, that's not really. And you know what? The solution that we are recommending to you, you don't even have to pay for it.
Oh, wow. That's nice.
I mean, because we want to be that trusted advisor. But yeah, I mean, technology, I really do believe that technology can improve the world, but just like any blessing, we all are given gifts, and sometimes we can use our gifts for bad things. And so I think we have a responsibility, right? I think, at the end of the day, at the day of judgment, we're all going to have to answer for how we used what God gave us.
And I hear you saying you're profitable, but profit is not the number one, certainly not short-term profit.
That's right.
That's not your number one concern. Your number one concern is take care of people, serve them, and then the rest takes care of itself.
Always been the way we've operated.
Always a great way to do it.
Always been the way we've operated.
Let me ask you just a very broad question. Mm-hmm. Is there anything about the way your faith shapes your work that you haven't mentioned yet that you would like to mention?
The faith is the hub of the wheel.
Yes.
I guess every spoke comes out from that. I mean, honestly, our faith informs everything. It informs the way we interact with people. It informs how we set our policies. It informs how we show up in the community. I mean, Greg and I have always believed to whom much is given, much is required.
You do a lot of volunteer work.
And we do a lot of volunteer work because, ultimately the day, in fact, we had a conversation yesterday with a very dear friend in Tulsa that we partner with, and we were talking about just getting your people to think like owners. And that's one of the core values of Edward Jones.
This is an owner.
He's an owner.
But maybe a new owner doesn't think like it all the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
But getting your people to think that way.
Got it. I'm sorry.
Kind of owner.
I didn't understand you at first.
The thing is, I said, the special thing about our relationship, and he is a partner that we partner on some leadership things with. I said, the really special ingredient for our two firms is that we don't just think like an owner, we think like a steward. Mm-hmm. And Greg and I know our business is not our business. Our business is God's business.
Yeah. And
again, back to what I just said about our gifts, we're going to have to answer. Dan, there's a greater responsibility there, right?
To whom, as you said earlier, I think, to whom much is given, much is required. Mm-hmm. And also, the Bible does kind of view our gifts and opportunities and even finances as not exactly ours, but as His and ours and the next generation sometimes. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's described as a loan in the Bible. It's all a loan. Mm-hmm. So this has been a lovely conversation. I'm so glad you're here in person. I'm happy to interview people from other places, but it's just nice to be in person. And so I want to ask you to switch gears. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
You ready to go to the rapid fire questions?
Oh, yeah.
If you could do anything for 1 year with no obstacles whatever, you don't have to worry about people running your business, about visas, and passports and missed connections, what would you do for 1 year?
Well, that's a good question. I have two things.
Okay, you can do two things for a year.
One of the things I would do, and I've told you this in a side chat, I would go back to seminary.
Yeah.
I'd go to seminary, and
You're welcome.
I would get more equipping, to do what I feel like I've been called to do, which is help women. That's one thing I would do. The second thing, and I just told Greg that this weekend, we had just a little bit of a margin. I emceed an event at the Ritz-Carlton Saturday night. Yeah. As a gift to us, they gifted us rooms at the Ritz-Carlton. So we stayed at the Ritz-Carlton, which was awesome. I'm like, I'll go MC somewhere next weekend.
You'll go MC somewhere every weekend.
Every weekend.
For a year.
Yes, it was awesome. But we had just a little bit of downtime on Sunday to read. And I said to him, you know what we need to do? We need to take a reading retreat.
Oh, yeah.
Where we just go. So that would be, I would go to the beach somewhere and read and spend time with my family with no interruptions for a year.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Well, that could lead very easily to the next question. What is the best book you've read in the last couple months? Something you would love people to read?
I can't just pick one. I'm so sorry.
All right. Well, you're a rule breaker, but entrepreneurs do that.
I am a rule breaker.
So that's fine.
I love to read. I read a lot. But business-wise, here's a few books that I've read. Probably in the last quarter. What Does It Cost You Not to Listen?
Oh, good.
By Christine Miles. One of my all-time favorite books is Redeeming Your Time.
Yes. By
Jordan Rayner. He's got a wonderful children's book out there, too, called The Creator in You. If there's people with littles, get the book. You will love it. At Your Best by Carrie Nieuwhof. fantastic. Office Shock is one that just came in the mail today for me. Dan, I've got a really good friend that recommended that and just thinks it's amazing. But it's about the future of work and the future of officing.
Oh,
it's
just
called
the
Office.
changes caused by the cascading downstream effects of COVID and
What's the
working at
future of
home
work
and
going to
so
look
forth.
like? And as a business
Right.
leader, you need to
Real
know
estate
that.
people in the big cities are thinking about that a lot.
Yeah, I bet they are too.
Yes.
But that's called Office Shock. It's just hot off the press. I'm reading a few others right now that are fantastic. Putting a Face on Grace by Dr. Richard Blackaby. He's one of my favorite people in the whole wide world,
Good
and
writer.
he knows it. He knows it. Spiritual Disciplines for the Christian Life, Donald S. Whitney. So, and I think you wanted to ask me about an entertainment perspective.
So you had so many books, I don't need an entertainment.
Yeah.
we're
Well,
good.
I'm going to put a plug in.
You want to put one in?
The
Okay, go ahead.
Chosen.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The Chosen. Our family, we are chosen fanatics.
Yeah, and you know what I like about The Chosen is that Jesus actually smiles and has a good time.
And he's funny.
Yeah, he's funny.
He's got a sense of humor.
Yeah, that's right. He's joyful. And that
I think
that
Dallas
does not show up in the other Life of Jesus kind of things.
No, it is. I cannot say enough good things. Our family sits on the edge of our seat waiting for episodes to release. So I think Dallas Jenkins and team has done a phenomenal job
A lot
with
of
that.
talent there, no doubt.
The Chosen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do you like most about being an entrepreneur?
The relationships, the
Yeah.
people. I've met some of the most amazing people over the course of our business and
That's a good answer.
love it.
Yeah.
People.
Last question. What would you like to celebrate in 5 years?
Well, maybe a seminary degree.
Okay, that's fine.
Maybe a few book releases.
Okay.
I think I have a few books in me. Expansion, maybe across the U.S. for technology partners.
Okay.
Bigger expansion. Maybe, God willing, maybe a few marriages
Oh,
for
you're
our
for your
adult children.
Oh,
So if
okay.
you know any...
I know a lot of people.
Yeah. We just have to find a good match, right?
Yeah, right. Well, that's your field. Put them through your grid.
I know. I'm a matchmaker.
Right.
So yeah, I would love for our two oldest kids to find
Yeah,
the
right
life
person.
partner.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah.
Lisa, it's been great having you. I've known about you by name for quite a while, and now I know you by face and voice and disposition. It's been wonderful to have you and to have you share your insights and honestly your positive outlook on business and work and technology and mentoring. It's been a delight to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I've heard equally about you, Dan. So I'm so glad now that we're friends.
Yes, absolutely. We're thankful for today's guest and also extend special thanks to our sponsor, the Alliance for Confessing Evangelicals. Please check out their site, Reformation 21. That's the principal host of this podcast. If you want to put your faith to work and change your corner of the world, visit our website, the Center for Faith and Work St. Louis. Look for faithandworkstl.org. That's one word. It'll help you start a cohort with like-minded believers who also want to practice their faith at work. This podcast is donor-supported. To keep us going, please donate on our website. Maybe more importantly, you can support us by listening, by subscribing, by sharing, by liking us, by posting us on your favorite platform, or go old school and tell a friend.